With only two Grand Prix to his Red Bull career, it was announced on Thursday, 27th March, that Liam Lawson had been dropped from the Milton Keynes outfit, instead being replaced by ex-teammate Yuki Tsunoda. This means that for this year's 2025 Japanese Grand Prix, Tsunoda will make his Red Bull debut on home soil, partnering with four-time world champion Max Verstappen. With the 2025 F1 season only just starting, Red Bull's decision to drop a youngster so early on has split the F1 fanbase, with some believing that his poor performances were enough to justify the act, whilst others believe that Red Bull's difficult but cutthroat mentality towards new drivers is just part of the sport. So, the main question is, have Red Bull made the wrong call with Liam Lawson? Well, it's the Podium Podcast, so let's get into it. Well, do we have a lot to talk about for Liam Lawson? Two Grand Prix into his Red Bull career, and he has already been given the axe. Yikes, that must hurt a lot. But it wasn't like it was it wasn't like it was something that was out of the blue. This is something that Red Bull's done throughout a lot of its career. We'll get into this later, but given the backstory, a Red Bull graduate from a very young age who's been given the shot at a Red Bull seat, what was then called Alpha, let's just call it VCARB, at a VCARB seat in the 2023 Dutch Grand Prix, managed to make his mark. He did quite well. He out-qualified Max Verstappen in Singapore 2023. However, Ricciardo did come back, so he only had a certain amount of time that he could prove his talent, which he did. Come 2024, there was obviously huge pressure on Ricciardo. By midway through the season, Helmut Marko had enough with Ricciardo at VCARB, which meant Liam Lawson had the chance to have a decent half of a season. I think he had 10 races altogether to prove his worth, which he did, to be fair. But come 2025, it seemed a very different story for the Kiwi, as within two Grand Prix, as I said before, he has been dropped. He has been given the axe from his almost dream seat at Red Bull Racing and is demoted back again to VCARB, partnering Isaac Hadjar for the rest of the season at least. Well, a lot to talk about, but I think the main talking point we can say of why he might have been dropped is, of course, his performances. One word to sum it up: abysmal, 100%. Yes, he only had two Grand Prix, but those Grand Prix obviously were so horrendous that they looked at the data and they saw no levels of improvement and decided to just cut things early because they just didn't have the faith in him. But if we look at the data, you can kind of see why one might have that vision or thought. Because if you look at all the qualifying sessions, all three, as we are counting the sprint qualifying in China, he qualified P20 in all of them. He was bottom last by at least a good couple of attempts, mainly nearly a second and a half to his teammate in qualifying, which is something that is worse than I think a lot of people actually realise. Fun fact, Lawson did not start a single Grand Prix or single sprint race from the grid. All of his races were started from the pit lane in some sort of effort to try and change setup at the last minute, because if you're at the back of the grid, there's not really much risk if you're willing to change setup anyway. But if you look at his points total, no points in Australia. He did crash. No points in China, just severely off the pace, complaining about understeer, oversteer, tire degradation, no speed on the straights. It seemed that every single problem that Red Bull had faced over its years had just came at Liam Lawson straight there and then in the first two Grand Prix. In Australia, yes, the conditions were very difficult. However, many drivers, even rookies, managed to, battle their way through and try and they managed to tackle the very difficult conditions. But it seemed Lawson was just severely off the pace. He did have a crash, as I said before, but even before that, there was no signs of, progression. And I think that's the main reason why Red Bull have dropped Lawson so early. Yes, it takes many drivers a lot of races and practice sessions and qualifying sessions to become the driver that they are today. You look at, Verstappen. In the first couple of seasons he was at in his Formula 1 career when he was at Red Bull, he was labelled Crash Stappen, Mad Max, given all these names because he was very reckless. However, Red Bull have an approach where they care more about progression more than recklessness. Christian Horner even said it himself, he would rather a driver go and smash his car up, but still have some sort of pace and hunger to, challenge for the front, rather than a driver who's very scared and very cautious and rather just sit back, not push 100%, but sit back and take a couple of points before finishes. That's their approach, and I just don't think Liam Lawson managed to meet their philosophy, which, I mean, each driver has their own, but when you are being compared to Nikita Mazepin in the first couple of races, then realistically the room for progression is minimal, to say the least. I mean, we can also compare this to Sergio Perez to see if Red Bull have made a wrong or right call. Checo's average finishing position was, we're going to just take last season because it's the most accurate comparing it to this season, was 9.67, which at the start of the season did count for a lot because he managed to get on the podium quite often in the first 5 or 6 races. However, from about Miami onwards, it was very poor, but still he managed 9.67, whilst Verstappen managed 3.63, which is still 6 positions off. Whilst Lawson this season has managed, I know this is only from 3 races, but 19.67 is his average position, I suppose, which if you compare to what would Verstappen's be, I think Verstappen's is around the 4th position mark, maybe 5th position, then there is a huge gap. In qualifying, Checo's, I mean, obviously Lawson's is 20th, whilst Checo's is 9.25, which, I mean, yes, you're taking 24 races against 2 races, but we are just looking at the mean average here. There's a whole 11 positions between them, which, yes, you can argue that the grid's been, you can take every single part of the context out of it. Checo's got more experience, Checo had more time in the car, Lawson's a rookie, the tracks are different, the whole grid is different, there's more competition. However, Red Bull, Helmut Marko, Christian Horner do not care about that. They just care about the there and then. They care about if the race is there, where are you finishing, because you're only as good as your last race. Gap to Verstappen average in qualifying was 0.6 seconds, whilst Liam Lawson was pretty much double that, with 1.15 second gap on average to Verstappen, which again shows that Red Bull just didn't decide, oh, I just want to, sack this guy for the fun of it. There was some data behind it. They had some sort of reasoning behind it, because I don't think anyone wanted to really just fire a driver, a youngster who did well in your sister team, just fire it for the sake of fun. I mean, of course, the argument about the car is always something that's been going around since, I'll say 2018, 2019, even 2017, even, we'll put it 2016. Is the car built around Max Verstappen? Well, it's funny, but if you take a look at, maybe not Ricciardo, but if you take a look at Gasly, Albon, Perez, and now Lawson, it either seems that Max Verstappen could just adapt to a car like that, or it seems that just the car is built around Verstappen. Everyone knows it. It's almost common knowledge now that Verstappen likes a very high downforce setup. He likes a car very pointy. He likes a car that's very easy, very oversteery, very easy to crash, which if you give it to a rookie is going to struggle with. And we've seen it before in history. You take a rookie that's just come out of a really good rookie season or a couple of seasons at a sister team, put them in a car, say, try and beat your teammate, a 4-time world champion. They try and push the limits, they crash, they lose confidence, they try and build it back up, and they're half a second down on their teammate, they're a second down on their teammate. People around them, their cars are improving, and they just almost get caught up in their own setup, and they try and look at the data, and they try and get overwhelmed with all these different things. But it seems that Verstappen might have the car built around him, which is a good thing when you want to win a drivers' championship, but it is a bad thing when you want to win a constructors' championship, because at the moment Verstappen is their only point scorer, and of course the money, a lot of money, comes from the constructors' championship. Of course, we have to talk about the person that's stepping into the Red Bull in his home Grand Prix with a huge amount of pressure on him, Yuki Tsunoda. He started the season off fairly well. He has put his name there after, the off-season in 24, in which many people were thinking Tsunoda does have a shot at the Red Bull seat. However, things have not turned out for him over the off-season. They chose Lawson because of this vision that they had, that Lawson had more potential than his Japanese counterpart. However, that is a very different story come just 2 races into 2025. Tsunoda managed to score 3 points this season, which is obviously triple the amount that Lawson has scored in a worse car, and has done fairly well in qualifying. Qualified P5, finished P12 in Australia, mainly down to a poor strategy. In China sprint, he qualified 8th and finished 8th, which was fairly solid for Tsunoda. And of course, in China, finished P9. Oh, he qualified P9. His teammate actually qualified him. However, he did finish last because of a really bizarre, strange incident in which he lost his front wing. Anyway, long story, it wasn't his fault. The RB strategy has been quite bad as well. He's been a driver which Red Bull have kind of played down a lot over the years since he joined in 21. It's always been that, Gasly is the one that they're going to choose over Tsunoda, or Lawson's going to be the one that chooses over Tsunoda, or De Vries, or even I wouldn't say Hadjar, but he's always been the almost the ugly sister of the Red Bull family. He's been the one that's been in the shadows for a long time. However, he has put his name forward, and he's done quite well to prove how wrong Red Bull might have been. Of course, we'll see. I think the next triple header in Japan, Bahrain, and Saudi are extremely vital for Tsunoda's career. I think everyone in that RB in that Red Bull, except for Verstappen, but in that Red Bull family's career is at stake, because you've got people waiting in the wings like Colapinto, etc., who are eager for a chance to impress. So he's got a lot of work on his hands, Tsunoda, for sure. But you do have to say, you would not be, if you're looking at Red Bull, you would be stupid to not give Tsunoda a chance. So if we take all of these into addition and see what opinions people might have, I put a poll out on Twitter, which you can follow at the Podium Blog F1, of saying, is Red Bull's decision to put Liam Lawson in the car, Yuki Tsunoda, in the car, a wrong decision? And a lot of you said yes. 67% of you said yes, which I'm gonna have to say yes. I agree with that. Personally, I do believe it is way too early for a driver to be dropped after 2 Grand Prix in a very competitive season, comparing yourself to a teammate like Max Verstappen. So for me personally, I think Red Bull's ideal situation would be to give him into what I think is Hungary, last race of the season. Give him to Hungary, see what happens, and if he's still performing really poor, then yes, then switch. However, 2 Grand Prix is extremely quick. No driver, they might just have 2 off days. Really, they could just really have 2 really poor days. And also those tracks, Australia and China, are very, very unique in their own way. You come to a place like Suzuka, where Lawson has done a lot of running in Super Formula and all those other junior formulas, so he will be a threat to deal with in Suzuka. However, he's in an RB now. It is changed. Would I say he's got a shot at Red Bull again? Really, really fat chance, I suppose. I don't think he does. I think he's always burned those bridges. So the question is, has Red Bull made a mistake? Yes, they have made a mistake, but it is always open to interpretation. So make sure to like and subscribe. Have a simply lovely day, and goodbye.